When it comes to EVE Online, every player wants to know the most effective tactic available. You want to know the meta. The meta controls everything. It determines what will and will not happen. Knowing the meta will alter your views, make you question your reality. It might even make you laugh. And now, you're part of it. You're watching The Meta Show.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to The Meta Show. Today is November the 18th, 2023. Looky what we have here.
Hello, everyone.
Look what the
Who's
cat
back?
dragged in. By
Right.
cat, I mean Brisc Rubal.
You know, it's funny, like when you think about all the different things that have happened in this game over the last 20 years and how much of it this man has been involved in. It's kind of one of these things where we just wanted to bring him back, especially when there's crazy stuff happening all over the place this week, to talk about all the historical crazy meta plays we've seen and how this one fits into it. So, hi, Mittens. Welcome back to the Meta Show.
I hear there's been some fuckery, and I'm sort of, you know, in my new role is, I guess, turning up as a talking head to talk about past fuckery. I feel almost as if I did watch, not last week's show, but the one before. I saw a recording of you guys interviewing the Down the Rabbit Hole guy. And I thought that was wonderful. And, you know, it really does kind of make you go, my God, I've played a lot of EVE Online. What do you see?
Yeah.
When you're like, okay, here's, I got to watch 6 hours. And it was wonderful. It was absolutely amazing. Like, you know, just probably one of the best pieces of let's try to explain EVE stuff that's there. But, you know, one of the things that is nice is that there is this long tradition of fuckery and things like, you know, Istvan and Tirax and the things that we have done, and then this most recent, you know, heist that Jay has pulled off. So yeah, I want to warn everybody. When I said I was going to wander away to go like touch grass and stuff, I've mainly been touching grass, like looking at birds. Ooh, there's swans. Ooh, aren't
He was
swans
talking about
pretty?
birds right before this.
Yeah, I was literally like sipping
It was not a bit.
matcha and watching the goldfinches and, you know, the lake and all that. So I'm not completely plugged into everything that's happening in EVE, but I'm here to sort of bloviate as required and talk about historical things. And yeah, it should be fun. It's good to be back, and I'm glad that everybody's out there and blowing shit up and having a good time.
And I'm glad you're back too, because I think from a historical perspective, there is nobody who knows the EVE meta play of grabbing everything you can and then waltzing out than you do, since you have orchestrated so many of them in the past. But before we even get to this stuff, of this week, there's so much other thing, so many other things, so much other shit happening in EVE that we have to go and talk about this first. And I have to say, I was reading a lot of historical stuff about EVE and bad things that have happened in the past to the Goonswarm Federation. And every time something really crazy bad has happened, we've had to rebuild from the bottom up. And there was talk about how, when we'll talk about this with Mittens when we get to that point of the show, but when Cartoon disbanded the original Goonswarm, they couldn't fit 30 guys in a fleet. Well,
that was what I inherited.
Right.
Wild.
That's what Mittens was inheriting, had to rebuild.
I had to start with, starting from the map.
3 days since Jay left and took everything that he could get and tried to destroy the clone bay in 1DQ. Look at this. We have a major fight in Clown Ring today. Why we're fighting in Clown Ring, I don't even know. Because God knows no one wants to live there except Seventh Sanctum. And as far as I'm concerned, they can have it.
Goddamn.
But Horde dropped a Fortizar in WTAC 4. This battle report is still being formed because the guys are still on grid. We're winning. Not only has the Fortizar that they dropped died before it got online, we're still on the grid, still killing things. The ISK numbers are very much in our favor, and I want to point this out to you. Horde 556, Fraternity 169, In at 507. Goon Swarm Federation 604. Look at this. Dracaris 148. Brave 145. Sigma 71. In its new crew 47. I don't know why Snuffed Out is on our side on this list. That's pretty funny. Anyway, the bottom line is 4 days after one of the biggest heists in the history of Goon Swarm, where a well-liked, nay, I may even say beloved member switched sides, ran to PL, and took everything that he could. Our morale has not changed. We are killing structures in crazy tough tie-dye fights, and we have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people in fleet out there fighting. And I'm pretty sure I know I saw Jay out there in a nightmare. And where is my picture? Yep. Jay was on the field in a nightmare in this fight.
Wow.
And I think we killed him.
Brutal.
I'm pretty sure he's dead. So when it comes down to it, I have to say, I'm very, very proud of everybody in this crazy little group we've got, because we went out there, busted our asses, didn't let this pretty significant heist deaden our joy of hanging out together, reduce the amount of time we want to spend together, or otherwise stop us from doing what we do, which is bashing structures. We do that very well. Any event. So congrats to the guys. I know many of you are still out there on the grid. Many of you are still out there on the field. We are waiting for Asher's fireside, which has not happened yet. The bottom line is, no matter what happens in the game goes on. And for those of you who are out there today, including me, I died very quickly. I was rather pleased with the way that this went. Mark, does this surprise you after what happened this week, that we were able to put 3+ full fleets in the field and kick Horde's ass?
Listen. I am proud of my distinction as an unbiased, neutral, very objective third party. And when these kind of things happen in the null space, out in the null area, oftentimes for me and my people on our lofty ivory tower, it just this news, the rabble, it all just kind of passes over us, and we tend not to put too much consideration into it. But when I heard the other day, when I woke up and I saw on the front page of Bob's Blessed Our Eve that a rat fuckery of the highest degree had occurred in EVE Online, of course, I needed to do some more investigation myself. And I spoke to some people. I spoke to Asher Elias. I spoke to my very good friend Kazanir. I spoke to you. And I'll tell you, at the time, the mood was grim. It was very grim, Brisc. And, and I've said this, and I'm going to say this more later on. And I'm so glad we have you here, Mr. EVE Icon, Mr. named more perhaps than Hilmar during the video.
It's a little weird.
It was strange, wasn't it?
Yeah.
To talk about this, because it is difficult in these trying times to find something, when the game is as kind of deadlocked as it has been, when people are seeing new avenues of experiences in low sec and in wormhole space and elsewhere. It can be trying, I think, for groups to find a common cause to really rally around, to really to just get their fingers into it. And I think that the Goon leadership should be thanking Mr. Amazingness, because if there has ever been a stronger rally around the flagpole that I have seen, I have not seen it. I said that wrong. Regardless, I think that it is impressive that and you can see it the day one, obviously full of the jeering and the screeching from the other guys, which is fair, honestly, fair, reasonable. Get your licks in while you can. But almost immediately, the goon damage control team swung into action. And the PR came in, and all the little goons suddenly perked up out of their goon holes and went to work mitigating the damage. So yes, it is unfortunate what happened, Brisc. Rat fuckery
It's a thing.
cannot go unpunished. But
It's a thing. We know this.
the goon leadership should be thanking Jay Amazingness for giving the goons a proper enemy. They have given the goons a right. Now he has run back to perhaps the the geriatric old man of EVE Online.
You mean the small one? They're just the small one, right?
Yeah,
the
small one.
They're just the small one.
And we'll see how well that goes. But I would say I'm not surprised after watching I know very little about goon culture. I have not been involved in goon business. I talked to you. I talked to the guys who are on the CSM, but outside of that, I don't know too much about goonhood. But watching the video a couple weeks ago and then seeing how people have kind of responded this last week has been eye-opening. So that's what I've got.
So,
it's been pretty impressive.
let me just address at least one of the comments in the chat here. So there was the statement was made that is 600 in fleet in an alliance the size of goons a show of resilience, or is it a sign they have terrible numbers? You let the spin decide for you. Well, hey.
Oh my God.
Well, hey.
Listen, if you have more numbers than the other guys, you have good numbers. What the fuck is so hard to understand
checked,
about that?
And if you look at the battle report, there were about, I don't know, 500 or so Horde people.
Yeah.
Look at how many Horde members there are.
Yeah.
Wow, 3,800. It's the fact that Horde was only able to get 550 people in fleet to defend a structure they were dropping in space that we don't control. Is that a sign that they have terrible numbers? You let the spin decide for you. I'm just saying.
Let the spin decide.
Anyway,
hey, speaking of numbers, Brisc
speaking of numbers, yes, we can talk about the next thing. Please talk about it. I will pull it up on the screen right now because it's pretty cool.
Everybody,
check this out.
I don't know if you've seen this yet. We nearly hit 37,000 today. 37,000. I don't know if any of you remember. Some of you probably don't because you weren't there. But at this point there was one point, not this point, just a couple of weeks before this point last year. We were lucky if US time zone got over 12,000. One night it hit 10. That was bad. Like really bad. Like concerningly bad. So for us to have recovered this way, one big shout out, of course, obviously to CCP for doing the work to make Havoc as interesting as it is. There's a lot I'm sure that we're still going to see, but we cannot deny that they have been pushing things that people, at least on at face value, seem to want. But a perhaps bigger shout out to all of the content creators, all of the coalition leaders, all of the alliance leaders, all of the FCs, all of the line members who have been logging in for your fleets to do stuff and keep EVE Online alive. That is why the numbers are up as well as they have. That's why the content has been so good. And that's why we're able to do this. We've got 1,100 in watching the show now. Brisc, it wasn't that long ago. We had a hard time hitting 200-300
I know,
on the show. It's crazy. Crazy.
Now, let me tell you something. First of all, I am not going to give CCP a hard time. I'm going to give them a hard time in about 30 seconds. But I'm going to say the Havoc expansion seems to have been pretty popular. Folks like this. They are enjoying what they're doing. And people are, look, faction warfare and the pirate faction stuff now and Zarzak, it seems like that's where the action is. People are excited. They are back and they're playing. Okay. But I will say all of this happened not in a vacuum. Because I think, frankly, the numbers are not just because of the expansion. The numbers are, probably the biggest part of the numbers is every time they do an expansion now, they're doing 7 days of free Omega, which I think gets a lot of people to try the game and try it the full way. So having free Omega is huge. And then two, as Mittens was mentioning to us before, and I don't know if we were live or yet, but we were talking about the show that we did 2 weeks ago with Frederick Knudsen of Down the Rabbit Hole. That video has 2.5 million hits in less than a week, in like a week or two. Okay, it's not even a month old. and I've seen a ton of people say, hey, I wanted to try this game because I saw the Down the Rabbit Hole. That, coupled with the free Omega, coupled with the expansion, and now stuff happening in the game, has got everybody back here. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy, and I'm very pleased with it. Now, that being said, we can't have an expansion without at least a little bit of controversy. And there were two controversial things that happened during the expansion this week. The first one, I'm going to let Mark talk a little bit about, because it was a bit of a controversy, but I don't think it was that big a deal. It was a big a deal for older players. And that was the latest thing that they're selling in the New Eden store, which is a bunch of Geno skins. But in addition, they are selling the Geno AU79 oral implant. This was the special edition from the 10th anniversary edition. That is what they did 10 years ago when they did the 10th anniversary edition. It was supposed to be only for that 10th edition forever, but they're selling it now. And some people are really pissed because those pods were going for 30 plus billion ISK, and now they're down to 7 because that's how much the thing costs. And Mittens, I think you'll appreciate this. Guess how much they're charging for this pack that includes this golden implant they were never supposed to give away?
Is it $70? Is it
it's
the same price as the fucking
$70.
monocle?
It is.
It is $70. This is not.
$70.
Listen,
Wow.
that is. You know why they did that. You know why they did that. Okay,
100%.
I mean, come on.
So
That's why they did
here's the thing about this. I want to first say that I sympathize with people who had market orders open and got clowned effectively by this. I get it. If you weren't fast enough, that's rough. I just want you to know that I see you and your billions and billions of ISK, and I want you to know that I feel bad for you. That being said, I've seen a lot of arguments about this, about how this was should have been just a one-time thing. Are they going to reintroduce the Raven State issue now? Are they going to crack open all the old AT ships now and just start selling those too? I cannot find it within myself to give a shit about CCP doing the one thing we've been asking them to do for ages, which is sell aesthetics. We've been saying it on repeat for at least the last 3 years. We ad nauseum almost. We've been saying, please, of all the things you could potentially sell us, you could sell us all kinds of stuff. You could sell us, ship skins. You could sell us fucking cat ears. You can sell us fucking holograms. Whatever you need to do, sell us stuff that sell us stuff. And this, I want to be clear. I think the pack is overpriced. Don't get me wrong. T Amber's skins are great.
A meme. You know why it's the price.
I know it's a meme. I get that. That's fine. What I'm saying is, if you don't want to buy it, don't buy it. It's not a big deal. Like, it's fine. This isn't golden ammo. It's not golden ammo. It's not
AT ships.
A special booster. It's not AT ships. It's a fucking pod, man. And yeah, I get it. 10 years ago they said it was going to be exclusive. Well, listen, 10 years ago was a different world, baby. Like that was 20 what is it now? 2023? That was 2013. Mm-hmm. I was only a couple years out of college. That was a different world we lived in back then. All right. The world we're living in now, nothing's sacred, man. I don't know what else to tell you. It just is what it is. So like the fact that they are selling us aesthetics and they are selling it at a high value, I don't give a flying fuck about that. I can't. And people are going to come to CSM and be like, oh, you got to tell them this isn't fair. My assets have lost values. Bro, I don't give a fuck. I cannot tell you. I just don't. This is the thing we want them to do. Sell us skins, sell us implant like mods for the faces, sell us shirts and hairstyles and everything else, because that stuff is inoffensive and doesn't break the game. I don't care how much they charge for it. If you don't want to buy it, don't buy it. But like, I can tell you this, that somebody is going to buy it, and then I'm going to buy it from them with Plex or with ISK in the game, because I want some of those skins. That Praxis skin is pretty fucking fresh. I wish the green was a little bit more green, but it's not too bad. So like, oh, okay, yeah, it sucks. Oh, they're selling the pod again. Give me a fucking break. Like, find something else to complain about. There's so many things this company does that you could complain about.
I got something to complain about.
Please go ahead.
Okay, here we go. And this is the last thing I'm gonna bitch about, and then we're gonna talk to Mittens because I don't want to have him sitting here as we bitch about shit that's going on right now because everybody doesn't care. Yeah. Listen, I fought for a year and a half to get the red dot fixed. That was a big fuck up. That was unnecessary. Here's the next one. Welcome to the new escape settings menu in Eve. This is what it is. What the fuck is all this blank space? And that's not even the biggest. I have a 47-inch screen, okay?
Yeah.
All my stuff is in this little tiny corner right here. And then in the bottom of this section of the fucking window over here is, did you enjoy playing EVE Online today? No! Because this menu sucks. This menu is awful. I do not, and the worst thing is, CSM, as far as I know, you guys were never told this was being changed. Is that right? No, it just happens. Yeah. They didn't show anybody this stuff ahead of time. And frankly, I don't see what it gets you. Oh, well, it's supposed to be more like, whatever. The only thing I can think of is going to happen is.
You want to see something really cool, Brisc? Go to the reset settings tab on the left. You'll get a kick out of this. Oh, yeah, your ad here. Very good.
That's about the only thing I can think of that they're going to do. And that's it. I don't have the thing.
You don't have it pulled up.
I can't do it. But it's
I'll just tell you, if you go to the reset settings tab on the left side of that, you can see it on that screenshot. That gives you a list of different things where you can like reset to default. The list is too long for the window and there is no scroll bar. So some of those things are just below the bottom of the screen and you cannot get to them. That's not a joke. Just can't do it. It's really obnoxious. Here, I'll send you a screenshot real fast. This is something that, I've complained about it already because it's kind of a pain in the ass, but like, this is one of those things. CCP has done a lot of really good work recently with regards to their I know people will disagree with me. Some of their UI design. I think Photon, aside from the fact that some people complained about it a lot early on, Photon's really gone off without a hitch for the most part. I have not seen anybody who has any other complaints about it, especially since, it has so many new options and new different things that you can do with it. But yeah, this one is a bad one. I don't know how you missed this up. This is just you can see the settings extend below the bar there. You can't click those. Tough nuts. Oh well.
Anyway, CCP, fix it. This is bullshit. Yeah. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to move into the top story of our show. We're going to talk about what happened during the last week in regards to the Jay Amazingness situation. We're going to give you an update on that. And then we're going to talk about the history of one of the oldest and most famous meta plays in EVE Online, and that is the Betrayal. On Tuesday morning, the day of the Havoc expansion release, 3 minutes or so before downtime, Jay Amazingness, who was one of the most storied FCs in the history of the Goonswarm Federation, he was our military director, he was a Sky Marshal, he was one of the most trusted people in the Alliance, helped win the war, and was a producer on the Meta Show, decided that he was going to follow in the footsteps of many famous goons in the past and say, fuck goons, I'm out. He proceeded to grab everything he could out of Goonwaff's hangars, grab everything he could out of DJs, because he had roles in DJs, which is the holding corp, the executor corp for the Goonswarm Federation. There were 7 people that had director roles in that corporation. He was one of them. And not only that, the biggest thing that he did, the most impactful thing, at least from the membership perspective, was he offlined the market in 1DQ, and he tried to offline the clone bay in 1DQ. Now, fortunately for us, the server gods that have screwed us over so many times in the past decided to shine down on us that day, I should say. And there were so many clones. As you can see, 52,670 jump clones in 1DQ. Because there were so many, the server could not process all of them before downtime hit. And only about 20 to 30% of all of the pods that were in 1DQ actually died. For example, I had 10 pods in 1DQ that had a variety of different implants in them. 3 of them died, 7 of them lived, including my Titan pods and my other high-grade amulet pods, and a couple other ones that were I probably wouldn't have mind dying. Some of them died. Some people, all of them died. Some people, none of them died. Some people, a few. Some people didn't. The result was probably something in the range of 1 to 2 trillion ISK or so worth of pods were destroyed when he offlined the clone bay in 1DQ. Now, why did he do it? Nobody knows. He hasn't said a word. Since that day, he has been completely radio silent in any public area. He has unfriended most of his friends, including me, including Mittens, including Merkel Chen, including Joe Painter, including a ton of people that have spent a lot of time talking to him, and has not made any comments publicly about why he did it. So we can only speculate as to why he did it. And I personally don't particularly care to, because we'll find out eventually if he so chooses to tell us what his reasoning was. But historically, we have seen this type of behavior in the past, and that's why we have Mittens here, because I want to talk about the history of betrayal in EVE. This is a huge thing. It is what this game is known for, and we have been involved in so many of these different types of betrayals that I just want to try to put this one in perspective. So Mittens, talk a little bit about your experience with people flipping and going to the bad guys from being in our group, or you being involved in doing other stuff.
Yeah. So, I mean, first of all, I want to make it clear, I'm not going to throw any shade towards Jay or anyone who's involved in anything active currently in EVE, right? Like I'm not playing the game. I'm legit off doing my own thing. So it'd be sort of rude to come back and be like, Jay sucks for this. As everybody points out, this is one of the things that makes EVE interesting and different, right? Like if you look through most games, this is like one of those things that you're allowed to do in EVE Online, that you are either prevented from being able to do because of game mechanics in other games, or because it will simply get you banned in more traditional like theme park MMOs. And you know, it sucks on the one hand, like it definitely sucks to like get that 4 a.m. phone call and like have to deal with a crisis. But kind of as you can see, from the fights today, it does get people in fleets. It does get people active and engaged. And you know, for me,
that's the silver lining, right?
Yeah, exactly. And for me, originally, one of the things that kind of got me into EVE, and I guess now that people have, you know, that Frederick Knudsen has done his thing and made that wonderful documentary, for me, it was hearing about Istvan Shugatsu and Tirax Thork and the Guiding Hand Social Club. That was what my ears perked up, and I was bored of World of Warcraft, and I heard about that heist, which of course was known originally as the Great Heist. And then, but that was relatively small scale, right? We're talking early days of EVE, 2004 or something. I wasn't there. I just heard of it, and then I came on board. Some of the bigger ones, of course, are of course what we did to Band of Brothers, right? With Hargoth Agmar, we got in there and we disbanded the entire thing. But then what's good for the goose is good for the gander, right? A similar thing happened to Goonswarm in 2010. We were in the process of getting attacked by IT Alliance, which was Bob's Respawn. We were in Delve. This is how the Great Whelp of Delve in February of 2010. And what had happened is that there was actually, and this is what I would describe as like opportunistic betrayal, right? Or just when people are no longer feeling like that they're really sort of culturally in touch with the organization and whatever the organization is, and they're just like, fuck it, you know, screw you guys, I'm going to go over here. And what happened was, this is the cartoon story. Now, this happened in
2010,
literally
2010.
13 years ago.
Yep.
Right. 13 years ago. So some of these details I'm gonna probably be terrible at. But essentially what had happened was there was a sovereignty billing oops, kind of like in BR5, there was a sovereignty billing oops that Manny always sort of lied about happening. But it happened to us. We didn't pay the bills correctly, and suddenly overnight, all of our SOV was whelped. And this was not because of Cartoon himself, but this was because of our CFO at the time failed to basically, he had gone AFK for a long period of time and wasn't aware that there were all these SOV bills coming due and blah, blah, blah. Cartoon was AFK primarily when all this was happening. And then when we woke up and realized, oh shit.
It was his honeymoon.
Yeah. I guess it was on his honeymoon. Wonderful. This is great that there's a historical record for this. Wonderful. Thank you. I would trust whatever is here rather than necessarily.
This is Andrew Groen's book, by the way, Empires of Eve, number 2. We'll talk about a little. I'm using the stuff that is quoted, so hopefully he doesn't get mad at us for putting this on the screen.
Yeah.
But this is stuff that what I have highlighted here was the exact conversation that Cartoon had with DJ and Nar back in the day when he woke up and realized, oh, hey, we forgot to pay the SOV. And now what we did to Bob did to us. And Bob's moving into NOL and stuff, and it's not good.
Now, the thing is, and this is something that results in administrations toppling, is that, you know, when people found out about this, you know, it was pretty, you know, goons were furious, right? Because essentially this was seen as a failure of the administration, right? Cartoon was AFK. I guess he was on his honeymoon. I'm not sure whether he really was or not. Maybe he was. I don't really know. I don't really care. But he had been sort of distant. And wasn't too engaged in the game. And that happened, right? Because keep in mind, it's 2010. In 2009, in February 2009, that was when we disbanded Bob. We won the Great War. We did all of this stuff. And then kind of like at the end of Vietnam, kind of like at the end of any major close of a chapter, you know, people are like, okay, I'm gonna put the mask down, right? Like I once wrote this long think piece called Masks in Cyber Purgatory, which was basically my sort of trying to describe what it is that draws people to EVE Online. And I think that if you have put on the mask of I'm playing this character, I'm doing this thing, blah, 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 you know, you can eventually say, you know what, I don't want to wear this mask anymore. I'm gonna take it off. I'm gonna put it down. I'm gonna walk away from it. And I think that that's sort of what happened is people were yelling and screaming Cartoon. He had been sort of disconnected from it. And then he kind of came back to everything on fire and people blaming him. And his attitude was basically, fuck you guys, I'm going home, right? But not just leaving. It was, I'm going to smash everything on the way out. And I'm going to, I think he ended up joining PL and ended up getting banned later on because of some sort of like a sequel injection thing. I'm not sure if it was the Sphere stuff, but I remember that Cartoon was in
Sphere.exe.
Yeah, it was Cartoon did eventually cop a ban for doing something shady, but it was another sort of scenario like this. So here you've got somebody who's got maximum roles, like this is the CEO of the organization, and if I remember correctly, during the time it was really XTTZ who saved the day, because essentially what happened was as soon as Cartoon started stealing things, XTTZ, who was the leader of Goonswarm's logistics division and also infamous as the single best sovereignty warfare expert in terms of defensive and logistics, like that kind of stuff. Like nobody knows that stuff better than him. And so he was able to sort of run around and fight this rearguard action with the rest of GSOL. Everybody's just trying to secure assets and do whatever you can. We had to make a shitty alliance called Solo Drakban, Solo. We cut off with the Solo, but we filled up the character limit with that. It was a shit
Solo
show.
Drakban was, for those of you who are not aware, Solo Drakban was the admin on the forums and on all of the back end stuff. And he was the only guy who had like really could have fucked everybody really good if he decided to go. But we're like, the only one we trust now is Solo Drakban. So there you go.
So we had to flee. Darius Johnson was about to go work for CCP. And at the time, I had only been CEO once before because Remedial had made me CEO as the fall guy back in like 2007. And I was terrible at it. And I quit pretty soon after. And it was a shit show. And I was like, I don't want, but I'm like, okay, well, we need a leader. Cartoon just blew our shit up. So there I am. I'm trying to ring up Darius Johnson to get him to come back. And he agreed to come back, but just for a short period of time because he was literally going to go work for CCP. So this is how we went from being established in Delve to ended up in Syndicate And then in Curse, because we made a couple of moves pretty rapidly, which I wasn't necessarily a fan of. I ended up having this thing where I didn't like us moving staging areas more than once every 3 months, unless you absolutely had to, just because there's an organizational burn factor that comes from that. But no, we were basically like cast into the winds as refugees, where we ended up with, again, in Curse, we were staged in XX9, and we had just 30 people in fleet, and it was just like the dead enders and the lost and the damned. And we're like, what are we going to do to try to, if we don't try to do something to build this thing back up, it's dead. So that's how I ended up taking over, because there's nobody left, and then breathing life back into things in Curse. But back to the betrayal, the more relevant bit. The cartoon, that's one of the reasons why, like, I can't be too mad at Jay. I don't know his reasons. Maybe he was just bored. Maybe he had issues with the administration. Whatever the reasons are, whatever. It's not mine to get into. But
and I don't think we're ever really going to know, to be honest.
But,
whatever he says
he
now is going to be, it's days after. It's not contemporary anymore.
Yeah,
it's filtered, and it's going to come. There's going to be a lot of, well, here's why I did it, and we're going to be like, okay. But even then, as you were saying, Cartoon. Let me pull this up. I want to show everybody, because Cartoon posted, after he did what he did, this long manifesto on something awful, talking about why he did what he did. And I wouldn't be surprised if we hear a lot of what he said here being repeated in whenever Jada decides to get around to telling us what he did. But he writes, Cartoon wrote, "So I've been looking a lot over the past month at Goon Swarm and the goons and the pubbies that reside in the Alliance. The majority of goons, for the most part, are disinterested in EVE Online at this point, with good reason. I've been looking at our post-Dominion strategy, and strategically speaking, things are easily winnable. The problem is we'll have to pack goons with exponentially more pubbies and negotiate standings with people I would rather never have to deal with in order to achieve this." So he goes on, so few real goons actually play this game anymore in comparison to the number of members required to hold space. So I'm doing the best thing I think I can do for the game, that is euthanasia. And then he says, I've already kicked every corp out. Yeah, exactly. I've already kicked out every single corp in Goon Swarm. I've removed all our standings with everybody. Feel free to spend the next few days blowing everyone up or whatever. Additionally, I've set Goon Fleet into self-destruct mode. TLDR, fuck puppies, fuck Eve, and fuck goons. That has become a rallying cry for almost every single betrayer that does this type of stuff and then leaves. And essentially what Cartoon was saying here, and I think I would be very, very surprised if we did not hear exactly the same thing from Jay when he gets around to telling us why he did it. If he ever does, it'll be something along the lines of, this isn't the Goon Swarm I remember. And that's probably true.
Ain't that the way it is?
Group has changed quite a bit from the old days.
Yeah, that is generally, like, this is one of the reasons why, you just have, this is sort of like a social network sciences tangent here, but this is one of the reasons why, if you have players that are no longer playing together actively, if you have, like, if I came back to EVE, which I am not doing, if I came back to EVE and I was like I have adventures and space games to talk about, but it's the wrong space game. I've got Star Citizen Adventures now.
He's a Star Citizen guy now.
Nobody cares about that shit, so whatever, we'll leave that lie. But the thing about EVE is, if somebody comes back, even if they've been away for a long period of time, especially if they've been away for a long period of time, you don't give them the keys to the crown jewels, right? Like that's one of those things. Apparently, I don't understand all the fact patterns. I do know that Jay came back relatively recently to activity, was given executor roles pretty quickly, and you got to find out who, if somebody's going to come back, you got to at least find out who they're hanging out with, like, oh, you're associating with the elitist ops guys or whatever. You do your basic research, because if, like, it's like with a company culture, right? Like, you can essentially tell whether someone is going to leave an organization, or there's hints about that somebody's going to leave an organization, if they're not engaging with it, right? Like, if they're not actively talking to everybody in the same way they were before for a period of time or whatever. Now, maybe Jay, I don't know, maybe Jay played it really smooth and he came in and silver tongued everybody and did a ton of work or whatever. But generally, if somebody is away from a long period of time, you want to at least see whether they're going to engage for 6 months before you hand them the keys to the castle. It doesn't matter who they are. Like, I shouldn't be given roles if I was suddenly back and being like, hey guys, whatever. At least not the very highest keys to the castle, because this happens, right? And it's not specific to Jay. It's, like, what another good example of this is what happened with the judge in CO2. Though that was more of a classic example of a scenario where you had one individual who is being relied upon by the leader to do like everything, and the judge was mainly just done with Gigex and being put into the position that he was in. If I remember correctly there. So, it looks like a boredom strike. It looks like, maybe we just take what Jay said at face value. What little he said, from what I understand, is that he's got a post or a bio about somebody needs to play the villain, which after a certain point, like if he wanted to really fuck over Goonswarm, he could have done way worse with DJ's roles.
100%.
Like
he could have flipped the Keystar. He could have done a ton. There is a ton of stuff
worse
that he could have done that he didn't do.
If he if DJ's owns the structure, right?
Yeah, that's what I mean.
He could have transferred the structure. It would have cost him nothing.
He could have flipped the structure. He could have given it to PL. I mean, here's the thing. Again, we can speculate all we want as to why he did it. Until he comes out and says why he did it, we really don't know. And frankly, I'm of the opinion that anything he says after the fact is probably going to be suspect anyway, because he's had a week to figure out what the story is. This could have simply been waking up or getting drunk and hanging out. He was hanging out with his boys that he likes over in PL or whoever, and just decided, hey, you know what? Hey guys, watch what I can do. And then he just decided to push the button. It could be as simple as that. And now I got into a long discussion with somebody on Reddit about the differences between motivation, which is before the fact, and reasons, which are after the fact. And how reasons after the fact often are pretextual. They are designed to mitigate culpability or find some way to make it seem like you were the wronged party and that you were doing this for a high-minded reason, when in reality you probably really didn't even know what you're doing, because humans are not rational people. We're not rational human beings. There's no such thing as a rational human. We all do stupid things and make decisions that are not in our best interest, that have no logic behind them. And I assume that that's kind of what happened with Jay. And yes, this is true lawyer talk, and I can see Mitten's eyes glossing over, because he knows, when I say things like mitigation and culpability and pretext, you know where I'm going with that shit, right?
I'm trying to not go off on there's a Stanford professor that I'm a fan of named Robert Sapolsky, who wrote a book called Behave, and he recently came out with a new book, which I haven't read, but it's basically, he's a hard determinist and talks about how humans think that we have free will, but in reality there's no like independent first cause anywhere if you go looking for it. And so I
haven't read the book yet, but I knew it came out, and I read some stuff talking about it, because for me the idea that there's no such thing as free will scares the living shit out of me. That there it is. You got it. So
literally right here. This is he's got the thing about it that's super
this guy's
cool.
he's a good writer. He knows his stuff.
Yep. Anyway, but yeah, it's good to see the activity, right? Like, it's that this is one of the challenges of Eve is that when there are fallow periods, and this is under the category of sort of relaxing, like retired Space Emperor things, is that, sometimes there's nothing happening in the game, and you've just got to, it's essentially like being, I'm not a professional wrestler, but a lot of the kind of things that I would do on the meta show would essentially be cribbed from professional wrestling.
Vince McMahon. Right?
Essentially Vince McMahon or whatever, or Ric Flair or whoever, because essentially the idea is, what are you going to do to entertain people, to blow up the spaceships in a different way? Well, the betrayal, the metagaming, all of these things, it's at least it's something active happening, which gets people fired up, and that's great. And it's also very relaxing not to have to do that anymore. Thank God.
I did.
Right.
You bring up a compelling point, and there was I mentioned, I think this to you earlier in the week, Brisc. I have an anecdote, a wormhole anecdote about betrayals. And speaking of activity and how it spurns activity, many years ago, there existed a group in wormhole space called the Mighty Beans, and it was among one of the worst groups that has ever existed. But they were proud of themselves, and they were obnoxious, and they were, the way that they were. They had one director. His name was Townsfolk. Townsfolk was a longtime member. He had been a director for a while, and at some point he got to feeling like he was not being appreciated enough, felt like he was not being given the proper avenues to lead the group the way that he wanted to. So one day he wakes up, he pulls a bunch of structure mods from their faction fort in wormhole space, and later on the same day, the wormhole boogeyman of inner hell showed up and started an eviction, and they had no defensive structures at that point. So in the aftermath of that, because the Mighty Beans did end up getting evicted, the various members of that group, the group itself fell apart because, again, it was a very bad group. But the members of that group went off into their different alliances and have since hunted this man to the ends of the earth, spurning multiple different evictions, multiple different log off ops in space, all because this one guy shit in their Cheerios one day, and they were not willing to let it go. So I agree with you that, well, rather, I think I agree with you that while it does suck, this kind of thing happens, and it sucks for Asher and it sucks for anybody else who felt like Jay was one of their true homies. It is perhaps a blessing in disguise, because Eve was, for some people, very boring before this, and now it's a little bit less boring.
Now, I have to say, the one thing I do want to disagree with you a little bit, Mittens. If I was in charge of Goons and Jay had come to me and said, "Hey, I'm back. Can I have my roles?" I'd be like, "Okay."
Yeah.
Because, I mean, to me, the guy's been in the group for 10 years. He's done everything there is to do. If he had wanted to screw us over, he could have done it at any other point, and it would have been as bad. This time, I don't think it was as bad as it was. I don't think it was a big deal. I can't blame Asher for any of that. I mean, if I'm going to blame anybody for what happened, it's going to be Jay, and that's to me is the bottom line. Whenever this stuff happens, we can talk about it. You can
always quit Eve and just give your stuff away, like I did,
just
right? Like
walk away if you want to leave.
This is a challenge. Like this is a real thing that you see a lot in a lot of dramas, and this was one of the reasons why I ended up quitting. Was I was looking at all of the drama that was boiling up after the war, and you can see this happened after the Great War as well. Where a lot of people want to walk away from the game, like they've reached a point and they're done with it, but they need a bloody shirt. They need some sort of an incident or something to draw a line. They can't just go like, you know what, I'm done here. Here's my stuff. I'm out. Peace out. I'm going to go feed birds and look at swans or whatever. Mm-hmm. And this is not unique to Goonswarm. This is a normal human thing that you see across the internet time and time again. So let me depersonalize anything involving my specific scenario. But this is a huge thing in MMO behavior, and it's a real challenge for anybody in any kind of a leadership position, which is, you're not going to know necessarily, because you're not telepathic, when your best and brightest people are losing their faith in the organization, because they're not necessarily going to tell you. They're not going to tell you that they're sick of your shit if you're the boss guy. They're not going to tell you that. They're going to go like, okay, well, I'm not being listened to, whatever. And it's just like a failure cascade. It's that slow process of people's identification going from I'm a member of the group, I'm a happy member of the group, to I'm an individual in a group I'm not so sure I agree with, to wait a second, what am I doing here? Actually, fuck you guys, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of the thing, is like you can see that process and go like, and again, I'm not sure. I can't really make any moral judgments about it one way or another. I'm not, like I said, I'm not going to point fingers at Jay. This is a thing that happens, is people will look around and they'll go, you know what, I need a bright line to draw under this. I can't just say I'm done and walk away. I gotta blow something up, or I need to be aggrieved at someone, right? And people won't necessarily choose the thing, but they'll be like, that's the thing that made me so bad, and now I can quit with my head held high.
Yeah.
I didn't quit Eve. Eve quit me.
Exactly.
That kind of thing.
Exactly. It's the whole Cortez burned his ships kind of thing. I don't want to play this game anymore, but I know because this game is like crack, it's going to drag me back in. So I have to find a way to make sure I can't come back. So I will piss off everybody that I ever liked and whoever liked me and walk away. Or like, for example, like Noob Man, there's a wormhole reference for you, Mark. Do something that you're going to get in trouble for, that you're never going to be able to hide, like leaking things off the CSM, and then get banned for life, and then you're done, and you never have to come back again.
I think it is I think you're right. It is a natural human reaction to want to. We're like cats, right? We want to bury our shit. And if we feel like we need to, if we feel like we can't deal with something, we're just going to bury it as deep down as we can and hope that we can't go back to that ever again. We can't dig the shit back up, right? So whether it's that or whether it's because he felt like, oh, it's just not the same goons as it used to be, or any variety of different reasons. The fact of the matter is the deed is done. He did the thing. He commit a rat fuckery, and he's resigned himself to some kind of legacy as a result of it. And whether that's good or bad, it's people are complicated. We contain multitudes. So
I mean, the bottom line, like, look, this is another example. Like, this is the Eve loves this type of meta play.
Oh, they do.
Eve loves it. Like, this is the type of thing that gets us news, and there's already MMORPG articles about it. I'm sure there will be other stuff. I think the only reason why other groups have not written about what happened was because Jay hasn't talked to anybody. So, I mean, when it comes down to it, like, there are a lot of silver linings to this happening. And to be bluntly honest, looking over everything that happened and everything that could have happened, this was not that big a deal in the overall scheme of things. When you look back on a history of really bad betrayals, when you look at what happened,
look what we did to fucking Bob.
Like, when you look at what happened to Bob, when you look at what happened when Cartoon shut down, because when you look at what happened to CO2, many groups will never recover from a massive betrayal from someone that was very well trusted. And this happened to us in a week. And so far, other than some money, we haven't really lost much. And I have to say one thing I want to say, and then we'll start wrapping up here because we're about on time.
Wow.
I saw something this week that really heartened me, and that was, again, an example of why I think goons are some of the best people in EVE Online. In the span of maybe 5 hours in Karma Fleet, a group I'm a director of, the largest group in Goons Forum, we raised almost 600 billion ISK to help cover the cost of Lost, Amulet, and Nirvana clones for all of our members. Merkel Chen gave 250. I gave, I think, 50 billion. A bunch of other folks gave enough money, and Merck matched whatever everybody else gave. So I think the total we ended up giving was something close to 280 billion, and then he matched it with another 250 or so. So we have managed to take care of all of our people. This was amazingly fast. It was amazing how quickly everybody decided, you know what? I don't need this money. I'm going to help the guys that do, and went and came together and tried to make this right. And that's the type of thing that heartens me, because every single time one of these types of things happens, I think it tends to bring out the best in the right people. And I think it did that this time. And I'm really proud of all the folks in Karma Fleet that banded together. And frankly, we got donations from folks outside Karma Fleet. We got donations from folks in Brave. We got donations from folks in Init. We got donations from other corporations and Goons. You guys are all amazing. And I know we're not the only group that did that. I know Amok and ASCII, I believe, also did the same thing. Other groups are trying to find ways to mitigate the losses for their guys. And I'm just proud as hell of you guys. You could have let this become a major thing and cause a lot of problems. But in reality today, we come back, we start out, and we kick some massive ass. But that's not all that's going on here. And Mittens, you're going to appreciate this. So it's not enough that this thing happens and the last war ends 2 weeks ago with a whimper. We're starting to see Pandemic Horde decide that they want to get a little frisky. And today was a perfect example of them trying to be a little frisky with dropping a Fortizar in WTAC 4 in Clown Ring, which is now no longer there. Gobbins pinged out his strategic update. And essentially, their whole goal for existing right now is to find ways to drag goons onto the battlefield and kill them in Catch and in Clown Ring. This is what they're trying to do. This is all they've got. It's pretty amazing to me. Now, I'll say both of these regions have seen resistance to our initial pushes, so expect fights to be had like today. And if you're new, they're staging in X47, have all your doctrines, get ready to go. The bottom line is these guys, the Horde guys, are going to try to take advantage of what they may think is some discord within the Imperium to try to make some gains and maybe get some good fights or do whatever they want to do. But the reality is, as we demonstrated today, we still have some bite in us and we still have some fight in us. And you can bring all your guys that you want as much as you want, and we're still going to be there and we're going to keep fighting.
You know, maybe they'll be able to find our lost super capital fleet if they're staging in 93 PI. I mean, that's
right. There you go. There you go.
In the words, Brisc, of my friend and your friend and our friend Casimir in chat just a few seconds ago, if you get the giant anime sword straight through the back and it comes out of your chest, but you do not die, you usually gain power.
That's what happens.
Better words could not be spoken. Shout out to our boy Kaz.
That's it. So obviously, like, this week was a pretty significant week. There were a number. This was not the only betrayal that happened this week, by the way. I want to highlight another betrayal. Karma Fleet's favorite Logi anchor, Lorraine, was supposed to come on Rampage Incorporated last night, but in the year of our Lord 2023 decided to tell us on the same night that he does not have a webcam and couldn't do the show because there are people left on Earth that don't have webcams in 2023. This, to me, frankly, was an even bigger betrayal than what Jay did. I can't believe you did that, Lorraine. How dare you?
Are we going to talk before we go? I know we're getting wrapped up here, but are we going to talk about the greatest betrayal?
Go ahead.
The greatest betrayal of the week, Brisc.
Please tell me. Please tell me.
The actual greatest betrayal of the week. Okay. The great cat betrayal of 2023.
All right. This also happened last night on Rampage. Let me
Can we talk about the great cat betrayal?
My cat is very large, and I wanted to show the stream how large he is. And I lunged for him when he was coming into my office. I not only fell out of my chair, I knocked the chair over at the same time. And everybody loved it. I'm not showing the clip. You can find it on Rampage.
Here, I'm going to link it right here, everybody, in chat. Okay. If you look down, you can see the great cat betrayal. Just take a look. Take a moment.
Okay, fine.
You don't have to link it if you don't want to.
I'll play it. Listen, I'll play it. You guys can watch.
It's I just
lunging for the cat, and there goes the chair.
Oh,
there it is.
Oh, man down.
Chair falls over.
Man down.
There you go. I fell down.
I tried to get him to put some Bengay on it, but
I fell out of my chair. Ha 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 ha. Yes.
You got up really fast though. For
well, it's because I was pretty close to the ground. I mean, look at this. Yeah. Look here, watch it again. There it is. Watch.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm watching.
I wasn't that far off the ground.
That's true. Okay. That's true. And you had your hands to really support a lot of that.
Well, yeah, because I was grabbing the cat. He was right there.
So anyway, the cat run older than me.
Right? Just it. Yes, a whole 6 months. Anyway, so that happened. That was the other betrayal that happened this week.
Great
so between Lorraine and the cat, and then the little thing that Jay did, we had a rough week, at least in the Rubal house. But I'm telling you, it's been worse before. It'll happen. I mean, that's the other thing about these types of things. Mittens, and I'll let you get the last word as we head out of here. This type of thing has happened before. It's going to happen again, right?
Absolutely, no question. I mean, this is just part of Eve, right? And as long as there are opportunities, and as long as people have leadership disagreements, that is going to be reflected in people pointing fingers, stealing stuff, wandering off. Like it is what it is. It makes it interesting. People are fighting, and that's cool and good. But man, I got to tell you, I am so happy to not get the 4 a.m. phone calls.
Right.
Yeah, fucking bet.
It's something I don't miss. Right after a few is enough. But yeah, no, it is wild out there.
Mark, any final words?
I got nothing, man. Listen. If nothing else, we can say that Eve, after 20 years, still finds ways to be entertaining. So fuck yeah,
it is.
dude.
It always will be. All right.
Hell yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, this has been The Meta Show for November the 18th, 2023. I'm Brisc Rubal, joined alongside Mark Resurrectus and our former co-host, the Space Emperor for the Ages, the Mittani, joining us once again to talk about the history of Eve. Thank you for coming on the show. We appreciate it, you Mittens. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we will see you next time. For those of you who are in Australia and you are at Eve Down Under, I hope you guys are having a good time. We'll hear all the shenanigans later this week. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you next time on The Meta Show, and you stay classy, New Eden.